Well, hey everyone, and welcome back to another week here on Mercy Talk. I'm one of your hosts, Rachel Thomas, joined by your other two hosts, Brooke Keels and Caleb Holgerson. What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Hey, it's still awkward no matter what. No matter what
All
I
you have to
do.
do is say hello.
I know. It just feels weird. It doesn't ever feel like there's the right time.
It doesn't ever feel well, and now we're doing this on
I
Zoom. So now it's
I
like
know.
when
Hey.
yeah, it's
I know.
awkward.
There's somebody out there that's like, I'm never listening to this again if she doesn't learn to say hello.
Hey,
And I respect it.
I respect it.
Yeah.
But
Not wrong.
you're back, so you must be listening again. As you can tell, we are continuing to record from our computers, from our homes. And I'm so grateful, a little overwhelmed at times. I've had this conversation with Caleb, a little overwhelmed, but grateful for technology. It's really what's kind of saving our rear ends these days with jobs and being able to do multiple things from home. So grateful to be able to do that today. But we wanted to really dive into some things today that we know that we are all experiencing on various levels. And so wanted to see if maybe that resonated with you guys as well as we just process what this world looks like right now. So that involves diving into two emotions known as fear and sadness, which I'm sure you're just jumping up and down about.
What a joy.
Yes, just what you wanted to dive into.
Yes.
But I
While
do.
I'm isolating, that's what I wanted to talk about.
Let's just talk about more sadness here, okay? But I do think it's important, and this is what I love about Mercy. And this is one thing I appreciate about just our conversations too here is that yes, we have the hope of Jesus, and we know that our hope is secure and we stand on a firm foundation, but we also want to be honest and like good stewards of the things that God has given us, and just be real with one another and saying, hey, I'm struggling and I need help, and asking for help. And so that's not a loss. That doesn't mean that you are, like now an unworthy child of God to reach out and go, I actually am sad. I actually am fearful in this time. And so let's talk about how to process that in a healthy way today. So that's kind of where we're going to go with this.
Yeah, I know y'all talked about this last week, but I think it's really important to take time to be with the Lord and to process what you're feeling through all these changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us, at first anyway, try to put on a mask or pretend everything's okay when it's not, and that's not going to get us very far in the long run. And so, yeah. With that said, I mean, I think today, we'll dive into fear and sadness and kind of learn what they're trying to tell us. A lot of the ground that we're going to cover today is taken from the book Voice of the Heart by Dr. Chip Dodd. It's all about this idea that, though most of us have a general idea of our emotions and what they mean, it's a whole other thing to learn how to process them in a healthy way, especially in chaos. So let's go ahead and dive into our first one. It's really exciting.
Yes.
Fear.
Yay.
Yeah. I mean, fear is a feeling that allows us to recognize when we're in danger and to cry out for help when we're in need. And I think, we can't be consumed by fear and function completely out of that, but it does serve a purpose. Sure. Right. So some people because it shouldn't be a part of me. That's not true. We were created that it exists. But, when you get into the spirit of fear, that's kind of a different thing. But Chip Dodd explains, and I'm going to go ahead and just read this quote so I don't mess it up. But he says, the help we receive when we cry out helps us learn how to trust, believe, and live. And so, I mean, if you just think about a time when, you've cried out to God, and when he shows up, like how powerful that is, right? The not just the relief of that, the relationship that's built in that, the trust that's built in that, a memory of, I'm trying to think, sorry, I'm kind of struggling here a little bit, but like you see this all the time in the Bible, like with Abraham, the Israelites, King David, in our own lives, is that anytime like they're working through the feeling of fear, instead of denying and putting it down. I mean, David more than anybody, right? He's like,
Yeah.
not only are we going to work through this, we're going to write and sing about it.
Heard about it.
Right. You know? And so, I mean, they just were kind of honest. They lamented, if you will, to the Lord. And so we don't want to obviously live in that place constantly. But it shows like, hey, when I'm afraid, I'm supposed to turn to the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to stuff this down and then act like, you know, I got to deal with this on my own. Like the Lord is there. Just like if my kid is afraid, I want him to come to me.
Yes.
And so we're not at all saying that God is like, I'm so glad you're fearful. And that he, of course, condones being in alignment with a spirit of fear. You know, but we are saying that these feelings, when they're brought to Jesus, can really serve as like, what's the word you use? Like bumper strips.
Bumper
for
strips.
Like
You on a highway?
Yeah. Or when something's wrong. Yeah, you said that. And so, you know, I think that you know, it's important when we feel a feeling to be like, what's behind that? What's going on there? And then to address it and not just try and make it go away. And I'm saying that as a person who 100% tries to make feelings go away so I can push forward and win. Right. So I'm saying that humbly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I got you. I think it's just funny. And I don't know if you guys can relate to this too, but especially in the church, I feel like feelings are always demonized as either the enemy or they don't warrant our attention. And so I have grown up really listening to just that voice of, if you are feeling something, number one, just assume it's wrong. If you are feeling something, number two, you need to work against it because that's the flesh and all of these things, instead of going, hey, maybe this is trying to tell me something. Maybe this is actually an honest part of me. And part of working through this is not allowing that feeling to consume me, but taking that feeling to Jesus. And so Brooke, do you have, maybe somebody can relate to that today? Like a lot of their life has been consumed with just people saying, well, stuff it down or get over it, or it's fine, or suck it up, or even like, that's a lie. You know, God, just go by what the word of God says. And listen, we are saying that the word of God is the ultimate source of truth. This is not to say otherwise. But what would you say to somebody who could relate to that said, man, I've never been told that my feelings matter. Like, how would you encourage them in that?
I mean, just again, you know, as a clinician, like I spend so much time being like, yeah, yep, that makes sense that you feel that way and felt that way. And a lot of times either so someone can accept that they, you know, like they may feel bad, they feel fearful, if you will. I mean, whatever emotion comes out of that, the agreements we make because someone told us like, suck it up, buttercup, we gotta, you know, get this done, you know, or whatever it may be, or just not feeling validated. I kind of, my favorite thing is like when people, you know, are really upset and somebody tells you to calm down and everybody's like, oh, okay, well, thank you. And now we'll be calm. Yeah. Now I'm calm. That helped. No, you know, what helps calm people down is if somebody's upset, like, oh gosh, I see you're upset. What's going on?
Yes.
Right. We acknowledge that there's something happening. It is telling us that something matters to us at some level, or an agreement has been made somewhere. It's something that's worth exploring. And so, I mean, I think just looking at Luke 10:27, right? It's a whole person. We don't deny ourselves of that. You don't live your life. You don't ride that roller coaster. And there's times to go, this feeling isn't true. Right. But you can't do that if you don't actually understand it and assess it and give it over to the Lord to help you figure out. Right. Yeah. So, but I guess I should actually say or reference the scripture, just that like, he says you must love the Lord your God, right, with all your heart, all your soul, all your strength, and all your mind. There's a reason he talks about the whole thing. Yeah. And again, there is a difference between fear as an emotion and a spirit of fear.
That's good.
And I think it's really important that we understand the difference of those two things too. One of them is just a natural part of life that keeps us safe or helps us pay attention. That feels weird. And the other is something that you have come into an agreement with, or we have come into an agreement with, and it's ruining our life.
Wow.
Right. Or it's dictating our life or our thoughts. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. That's really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, you know, important to realize too, like, you know, there's an entire book in the Bible called Lamentations. Like, you are definitely allowed to take those things to the Lord.
Right.
You know, I think that's always good to note that, you know, there's an entire book that's just, it's almost just complaining to God. So, so if anybody's listening, that's for somebody there. I think, oh, that's good to know. It's probably a good place to mention this term that Dr. Dodd refers to. He says, he uses the term impaired fear, and he refers to impaired fear as anxiety. And we talked about this quite a bit last week, but anxiety is the dread of something when we don't know what's going to happen. It's dread looking for an object to place control on so that we can make fear go away. Dodd also suggests that many of us have possibly experienced sickness from not being honest with our feelings, or from trying to control everything around us, which is anxiety. In times like these, the first thing we often want to do is find something to control. But a big part of the process is learning that we're not the ones in control, and resting in the ones who is, and the one who is, not the ones who is. That didn't make sense. But give up control to God.
We're with you.
Philippians 4 addresses this so well. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and your minds in Christ Jesus. The question here is, will we reach out in faith when we're afraid, or will we pull inward and try to control everything around us, which becomes anxiety?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I've never really been controlling, so I can't quite understand that. I say that in such
that was a good
jest.
straight face.
I tried really hard. No, Rachel was like, she's not. No, it's ridiculous. It is ridiculous how much I try and control. And guys, I have a really great relationship with the Lord, and I try and control. That's what the battle is. That's the constant battle of existence, and this is kind of fresh for me. Yesterday was like a really rough day for me in control, and having to go and I literally, it was like, I will not stop until I play one worship song through and think about the words the whole time, instead of going through every bit of a scenario, that happened that I'm like trying to fix. It was like, there was like some discipline that I had to have around it, because if not, I was just going to obsessively try and fix things that just I can't fix, you know? And so, like that verse, I think what's so important about it too, is that it talks about it. It's not just giving it to the Lord. Right. We're petitioning, we're praying, we're thanking him, we're praising him for the positions we're in, what he's going to do, the way he's going to order our steps. But also it says like the peace is going to guard our hearts and minds. And that's where it goes, right? Where you hand it over and you let it go. And then our hearts and minds are guarded so that we can move on and exist in life, you know, because really, and it doesn't happen to me often, but when it does, I'm just like done for. My husband was like, what the heck happened to you? And I was like, just let me feel my feelings. And he was like, I don't know what to do with this. So, but anyway, and nobody, like, I guess another feeling of that no one really loves, and that's sadness.
Oh man.
And but sadness is important. And I'm again kind of speaking personally about this. Like, I am not a sad person. I'm just not. That's just not something I've dealt with. But there was a season not long ago that I was sad, and it was weird. And I had to really dig into some things. But the Lord had some really good stuff for me there. Things that I had not decided to deal with. I had no idea.
Wow.
And even just some places of being like, Lord, I'm just sad. It was bizarre. Friends and family were like, and it wasn't depression. It was just really sadness, and filtering that out, and it's a feeling that like allows us to deal with life on life's terms. Life isn't perfect. It isn't easy. It isn't fair. It's none of those. And Chip actually talks about that, and he says, like, life is hard, we are human, and we are not God. I need to actually write that on my wall somewhere. I am not God. Cool.
I am not God.
Good to know. And life is hard, and that feeling we have when we lose something we're attached to, And so, sadness allows us to honor the memory of what we lost, which I will say, this is my personal thing. I don't think he says this in the book, but sadness and grief can go hand in hand, but they're also different in some ways. Like grieving something doesn't always come with sadness, but it is a piece of it, and allowing yourself to sit in that.
Yeah.
So no one may care but me, but I do think there is a small distinction there.
Yeah.
So anyway.
No, I think that's good. And I love what you said. Sadness allows us to grieve or to mourn what was lost, I guess I should say. And it really allows us to honor the memory of what was lost. That has been the most freeing, I guess, concept for me, because I think a lot of us are feeling that right now. I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, like, we were all just talking about how different life was a month ago. And I think about what our life is now, and this sounds so silly. I'm just going to say it because maybe somebody else can relate to it too. So one thing that I've really mourned yesterday was my youngest daughter, or my middle daughter, takes gymnastics, and she has missed class and just been like, mommy, when are we going to go back? And it's like her thing she just looks forward to. And I knew yesterday that I needed to go ahead and cancel it, because I knew from here out till at least May, but probably longer, we weren't going to have it. And I really mourned that. And I know that sounds silly, but it was like this piece of life that I know she doesn't understand, but it was about to change in a big way because of everything that's changed already. And I think before I would have been like, this is so dumb. I am like such a wuss. But the truth is, I think it's giving yourselves the permission to recognize that, like, this is not easy. Like, there's been a lot of change, and nobody has to pretend like they have it all together, because AKA none of us do have it all together. But I love 1 Peter 5:7, where it says, pour out all your worries and stresses on him and just leave him there, for he tenderly cares for you. And he doesn't give you like a size requirement, or, okay, it has to be like a death in the family or major depression, or no, just bring what you have. And he cares about it. He will carry that with you and for you. And side note, since we're talking about sadness, I don't know if y'all love the movie Inside Out. You should love it. It's one of my favorites. Just saying. But actually, what's funny, that movie has kind of come to a new light in these last couple of weeks, because the whole time, if you've seen it, and if you haven't, I'm sorry, so, spoiler alert, and it's been out for like 4 years, so go see it. But Joy, the whole time, is trying to get rid of sadness because she doesn't see its value. She thinks she's annoying. She's always bringing the mood down. And then by the end of the movie, you realize that sadness is essentially just that, is honoring the memory of what matters to you. And I feel like I've seen that flashbacks of that movie in my mind several times this week, of just being okay with the fact that I'm not okay, or it feels like I'm not okay. And that's okay because I know the one who is in control, if that makes sense. And so I can bring in what I have now, and I don't have to pretend that I'm something I'm not in this moment. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. I'm processing this with you also as we're recording this.
I'm sure everybody was like, oh, good. They're
a counseling session with Brooke. Yes, guys, a live counseling session right now.
I mean, but no, you have a good point though, because part of what he talks about too in the book is like trying to deny or bypass our own sadness can lead to an impaired expression of sadness, which is self-pity. Yeah. Right? Like, it's just, and that is not a good look for anyone. We all have done it. We all have sat in it, and depending on your personality type, maybe some more than others, not judging, force. And so, but I think that, a piece of that is, like, we have to take the time to acknowledge our losses.
Right.
Like, even in this moment more than ever, that all of us, are like, what, really being like, I don't know what the world will look like in a month, or whatever that is. Or maybe they're through this loss of jobs, loss of, relationships. Again, we mentioned like some people are having to grieve on their own, like they can't all be together during that. And I know this whole COVID thing is so topical right now, and it seems kind of tried to talk about things before in some
Right.
ways when people are walking through such hard things right now. But even if it's in the middle of this, we do have a place where we don't have to be stuck in self-pity. You
Yeah.
can feel your feelings, take the time, let it happen. And it may be a process, it might be for months to come after this, you know, depending on the impact of your loss, years to come. I don't know. But when we sit in self-pity, we actually escape the grief. When we escape the process at some level, because it never kind of moves on.
Yeah.
You know,
I gotcha.
and it's okay to have a moment in time. You get to feel sorry for yourself. Just let it be a moment and then move on, so that there can be healing. And going back to the fear piece, so there can be relationship out of that too.
That's good.
If your existence becomes self-pity, it's just not good. But like working through our own sadness leads to resilience. And also just saying like, it's not okay right now.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Right.
It's fine. It is fine that everybody's not sitting at home feeling really happy about what's going down in the world.
Right.
But our job is to be, mature enough, I think, at some level to go, but I'm not going to let this dictate my existence.
Yeah,
from here
that's
on
good.
out. I don't have to sit in this in the sense of never moving forward. I'm going to sit in it and learn what I need to learn and let the Lord minister to me in that place, and then pick up and go on,
That's so good. That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's really good. Well, with all that said, let's get some takeaways here. So there's, I think, 3 big takeaways from this episode. The first would be take time to get alone with the Lord and ask Him to reveal a specific moment where you try to bypass your own sadness and seek healing on your own. I think that one's huge. From there, ask Him to remind you of His heart for you in that particular situation, and give yourself the time and space to be sad about that particular loss with Him. And lastly, write down these 2 pieces of scripture and leave them somewhere. You'll see them, your bathroom, nightstand, kitchen sink, microwave, wherever you hang out the most, I guess. To remind you of God's the coffee pot. That's a good spot.
Yes.
To remind you of God's nearness and says. So the first one is Psalm 34:18. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. And the second is Psalm 147:3. He heals the brokenhearted and bandages their wounds.
That's so good. Thank you for those. And thank you guys for this today. I feel like even talking about this, even on this podcast, even hearing you say that you had a hard day, that in some weird way, like, just encourages me, because it lets me know, like, so it is okay to actually like process and really sit down and look at what's going on. Because I think a lot of times we can feel like, well, it's just me that's not handling it well. Like, I see everybody on Facebook and they're having these spontaneous prayer meetings and like revivals, and I feel like I am really not holding it in well. You know what I'm saying? Because I've had them too, where there's moments of fire, and then I come out of it and it's like, oh, sweet Jesus, take the wheel. And so even hearing your honesty encourages me, and I think that's why being honest in this process with ourselves for sure, but with one another, is so beneficial. So thanks guys for doing that today.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank
you, Rachel.
Yeah.
And by those scriptures, you can also write like, you're awesome, like something happy too.
Yes, exactly.
Just like,
exactly.
Yeah.
He saves those who are crushed in spirit, and then I am also awesome, and God loves me.
And
I don't
God
know.
loves me. That's right. A little.
I don't know that I want to read that and get in my coffee. That's all I'm saying.
I
And
gotcha.
so we need to hear them, but then
that's right. Hey,
right
now it's the little things. Brooke, before we recorded this, took a sip of her Red Bull and was like, yes, there's one more sip. And I was like, you know what? That is so true. Like, there's nothing better than having one last full sip of your beverage.
It was gone, but it wasn't. And I did. I was so happy about it. We're going to enjoy that moment.
It's a little thing. So, all right, guys. Well, we will be back here with you next week. Until then, we just pray the peace and grace of Jesus to cover you today. We'll talk to you then.